day 2 here of Procurement and Supply Chain Live Sustainability. And this is one I've definitely been looking forward to. It's always a big talking point, and that is the Gen AI Forum. So let me introduce the guests with me today. So we have Mohaela Ambrozie on my far left, VPC Head of Operations at Vodafone. Next, we have Mark Baker, Course Director and Visiting Fellow and Cranfield School of Management. And on my immediate left, Ashley Norton, Senior Director, Supply Chain and Procurement at NTT Data. A warm welcome to my panel, please. Right, well, I'm going to start with the most leading and obvious of questions I possibly could, because I'm the host and that is my right to do so. Mohaela, I'll start with you. Can Gen AI solve all of procurement and supply chain sustainability challenges? If the answer is yes, we'll stop now and all go for another coffee. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would love to say yes, but the reality is that it's not a silver bullet and cannot solve all the challenges on its own. So, but of course can help a lot. In, for example, understanding how the suppliers behave, what is the supply chain, monitoring the whole supply chain to understand sustainability at each stage of the process. Discovery of suppliers which behave better than others in terms of sustainability. So there are a lot of things that Gen AI can help with in terms of analyzing a lot of data, which otherwise wouldn't be possible, and giving insights to the humans to take decisions or suggesting decisions for the humans. But not alone, right? So it requires a lot of human oversight to ensure that the decisions are the right ones.
Mark.
I've had to think about this a bit deeply from an education point of view, just putting together a new 3-year apprenticeship degree on logistics and supply chain management. And the first thing you're looking at is not just AI on its own. You're saying there's a portfolio of technologies. You know, you've got IoT, so you've got just sensors and RFID, cloud computing, so connectivity, big data analytics, so AI and machine learning, and then we've got blockchain, virtual reality, robotics, and unmanned vehicles. So I've had to think about not just delivering what you'd expect in supply chain management, but how do we educate and develop the supply chain leaders of the future? So an AI's role in that. And what you start to realize is we have this portfolio of opportunities, of ideas that can improve performance of our organizations, but we also have these portfolio of technologies. And it's the combination of those technologies and AI's role in it. So I actually think in terms of challenges as well, that's one of the biggest things, is what's AI's role within that. And I've spent the past couple of years trying to speak to C-suites in a number of sectors. And there's clearly some key factors in making this land successfully, which isn't really out there at the moment, but which we're starting to identify.
I am going to go on a brief tangent here before I come to you, Ashley. How on earth do you put together a syllabus when the speed of change is so rapid? That must be an extraordinary challenge when the speed of the technology changing is so great.
One of the benefits at MKU, where I teach, is we are also the first degree apprenticeship with robotics and engineering, and we've got our new course lead here today on project management. And it's the use of technology is the starting point in developing a syllabus, and we're working closely with employees. These are apprenticeship degrees, so they're employed, and we're preparing them for the future. So we've got a lot of business input through Cranfield and MKU, which is probably an advantage to what we're trying to do.
I warned you I'd go off on tangents. I do apologise. Ashley, I'll come to you on that first question about whether Gen AI can solve all of these different problems.
Simply, the answer is no. I think we all probably would agree with that. I look at AI, and I know some of you have probably had a really interesting overview of agentic AI with the previous speaker. But I think it's about new capability that's derived through having intelligence, and that intelligence is curated through AI. So I see it as a massive opportunity to start to do things which are not currently being done today. And if I make a real example of this, one of my favourite and specialist subjects is supply chain resiliency, and the fact that most of the supply chain in almost all sectors and industries is somewhat invisible past the first tier, as I would call it. Well, actually using AI to prognose what those probabilistic supply chains may look like then enables you to start doing things through data and insights that you wouldn't necessarily do today just because you can't. So it's about opportunity through insights and data for me.
We've done some research that supports that. There's a great piece of work that was published by Shi Wang, Emil Actus, and Abby Gadge at Cranfield last year on digital transformation in supply chains, food supply chains, and they found 4 levels of business data analytics sophistication directly related to improving your supply chain competitiveness. So the first level is like descriptive. You know, we can see what's going on in our supply chains. The next bit is predictive. We can see what's about to happen, head around the corner. Then there's the prescriptive bit of, some remedial actions so we can get back on track. And then this final bit, certainly with AI, of cognitive hybrid, where you're combining both the business performance and supply chain performance to make better overall business decisions. So this is this huge opportunity, and it is directly related to competitive edge in managing supply chains.
Let's move on to the here and now before we get on to some of the particular challenges. And it might seem like a strange question, but do we feel at the moment Gen AI is being used enough to make progress, particularly within the sustainability of supply chains and procurement operations? Ashley, I'll start with you on this one. It feels like it's infusing into every solution out there, if it isn't already. Is it being used enough? Is it potentially leaving some people out on the smaller end of suppliers? What are your thoughts?
We're on that early stage of just really testing what AI can do. It's that infancy for me. Yeah, there are organisations that are using it more predominantly, but I, in my simple way of kind of looking and describing things, on that journey we are just crawling now with AI. And yes, we want to walk and we want to run, and there's lots of conversations about agentic AI and what does that mean. Most people, most organisations are not there yet because they can't be, because they've not looked at their data structures, they've not cleansed their master data, so therefore the disabler is really in-house. I think there's going to be a huge acceleration, more so than what we've seen in the last 18 months or 2 years, and that will just continue to gain pace. But I think the answer is simply no, but ask me again in another 18 months and I'm sure you'll get a different answer.
Mohaela.
I think that there's a lot of hype, and I see acceleration in use of Gen AI in procurement. There are researchers saying that we are at the peak of inflated expectations, and in a few years, like 2-3 years, we'll see more mature solutions from the technology perspective. And that, I think, is because now we need to put the data structure in place, governance on top of our data, to curate the data, and then build better models over time. And that takes time. We are now in a very initial phase. Accuracy and bias could be a problem, and that's why over time this will improve, and I expect that in 2-3 years to have more mature solutions to support procurement.
Yeah, someone's described it to me as us not even being in the spring of this technology. The Christmas decorations aren't even down yet. But Mark, your thoughts? And
if I can just jump in as well. I think the question that people need to also ask of themselves is why do you want to do AI? Why do you want to do Gen AI? Why agentic AI? Because you have to understand the value and what you're trying to do. And I think there's almost this tendency for people, for leaders in organisations to jump on the bandwagon just because everyone's talking about AI, right? And actually you don't understand why you're trying to do it and what benefits you're going to get from it. And that's where the data element comes in and where you apply it to begin with to start that journey.
To estimate the benefits is a challenge, right? So you need to start from the benefits and then build a business case. And that is a challenge. Estimating benefits, seeing the return on investment for what you want to do is challenging at the beginning. And the upfront investment is quite high. Being a new technology, like any other new technology, is more expensive at the beginning. Takes time, resources, which you may not have if you are a small company. That's why maybe you need to rely on external suppliers to help you building this type of solutions.
I liked what Nitin said in the last keynote, which was false starts with shiny things, which is probably where a lot of us are. When I was talking about this portfolio of opportunities to improve performance and sustainability, and this portfolio of technologies, if you stand back and really look at the big picture, for most leadership teams in organizations, the issue there is about strategic renewal. And therefore, the research we've done is showing that is the crucial capability of landing success in this decision-making, is what is the capability of the leadership team to govern strategic renewal, which is a little bit of what you've just been talking about, Mohaela, is are you aligning to your purpose and your vision, what you're trying to achieve, about how these technologies will realize that, and how in your governance in the sense of what's the quality of your organizational processes, especially with important decision making. And what this digital transformation era is making is to really step up our game in strategic decision making and strategic project selection. And what I see is there are some organizations who've really got their heads around this. They understand, for example, that I've identified 5 pillar capabilities. One is resilience thinking. So it's about, do you stick with your existing strategies with all this new technology, or do you need new strategies? Or do you stick with your existing processes, or do you need new processes? For any organization in C-suite leadership team saying we've got to implement new strategies and new processes with this technology, that's a huge risk and in terms of cash commitment and a focus of effort. So, and we've identified a number of tools and techniques and mindsets that can really help in that stage of adapting this technology effectively.
Because application and implementation was exactly where I want to take this next. I'm not sure if you can see my notes from here, Mark. Thank you for that. That was perfectly linked. And Mark, I will start with you because I know this is an area you've done a lot of work on. The biggest challenges in applying and implementing this kind of technology, because it is transformational often. If you've got a poor set of data to begin with, you can't work in the new. Is it just data? What are the other challenges? I'll start at the other end. We've just been hit by something, certainly education-wise. There was a great piece of research, not from us, that came out just over a month ago, that showed there's a direct inverse relationship between the use of AI for cognitive offloading and critical thinking. So cognitive offloading is you're using AI because your head's full of stuff, and this helps you get there easier and faster. So, but if you use more AI for that purpose, it worsens your ability to do critical thinking. Now, in supply chain, typically, and I've worked in supply chains most of my career, it's all about trade-offs in every moment, which requires critical thinking. So the use of generative AI, there's a governance aspect of saying, well, how do we use this? That's the real challenge, to augment and enhance our decision-making. There are areas where we can let it take over, probably, but there's a lot of areas where we have to say it's going to help me get a long way there, but I've still got to stand and make the decision. And I think that's a huge piece of thinking that's only just getting understood in this area.
But on that point, I think we should recognise that every sector, whether it's regulated, non-regulated, every industry may have a different view on the level, the thresholds which they allow AI to become autonomous. You know, because there's different levels of risk.
And so it's a governance question for organizations, and how good are organizations with that sort of decision making? Mohaela, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've seen recent examples of generative AI in, for example, in contract analytics or in the contract negotiation, and it's very powerful because it helps a lot the contract managers to speed up, to streamline the processes, and basically using your playbook to be able to complete this negotiation in very fast, right? Also in logistics, optimization of routing of the process that had very good results. To your point earlier about how much we rely on generative AI when it comes to decision, especially when it's about the evaluation of the business, evaluation of the supplier, right? I still think that the human oversight is required. Maybe for a while, we'll see. Over time, we'll correct these models, so the stakeholders will give an input, and that's why it's very important that these models are explained, and the decisions are explained for those who are getting the indication, the guidance to give a feedback, and then based on this feedback to adjust the models and improve them all the time. So just relying only on generative AI, I don't think it's wise at this stage. We'll see what the future brings, but it's important to have, for the users, to have the opportunity to give a feedback and get that feedback into account when we retrain the models so we improve them over time.
A theme that we've seen over the last 2 days is data, very much, and about the amount of data that's been requested from suppliers, the issues that cause. What difficulties are we seeing companies facing in managing and integrating that sustainability data into their models when there's so many diverse suppliers and sources? What are our thoughts on that? Because without the quality and clean data, the model will struggle. Mark, that is a sage nod if ever I saw one. So I'll start with you if you wish on that one. Your thoughts on the importance of data, and maybe is there too much data? How do you get the best out of it?
Slightly different perspective, but directly on the question is, I suppose, is what are you trying to, what are you trying to achieve with this change? What's the purpose and vision of your organization? Where do you see your positioning? Is sustainability a key part of your positioning? So the question is there alignment between the data that we need to support decision-making against that or not? And typically there isn't. And this is where this is this huge opportunity. So the first piece is if you can get alignment between your overall performance, both financial and supply chain, and against a sustainability, you'll find the data, you'll go after the data that supports you in that decision-making. So it's a mindset thing of, rather than looking at what's the problem we're trying to solve, it's the theory of change thinking of saying, what's the goals and outcomes? And this is what I think is a big difference, that envisaging a different future is key to getting that data and how to use it in that way.
Ashley?
I don't think there's too much data. The data is the data, and it's going to continue to grow. So it's about how do you manage the data, how do you segment the data. I spoke, I think 18 months ago, about using external data ecosystems and segmentation and alignment of data to the business use cases. And I think you just need a clear view of your use cases, the areas where you want to explore optimization and efficiency and compliance and resiliency. And then it's a question of mapping the data and where the data is available to those business challenges and use cases. Absolutely. And if the data is largely around external threats with your supply base, then use external technology providers who've built up the intelligence layers outside of your organization to collect the data, and then it's a question of how you use it within your own business. And this is where we get into agentic AI, and do you then start to allow technology to make decisions for you based upon data sets that are coming in and the insights? And that's really the evolution, and probably we're at the run stage, but I think where most people are still in that embryonic kind of, let's crawl and let's just understand how we get started and put some boundaries around this thing so that we can manage it like a baby, and then we'll evolve and let it grow as it moves forward.
I think it goes without saying as well, at the core of this is people. And obviously I'm saying this was the focus of education. Do we have the talent Are we educating them, developing these digital supply chain leaders of the future to be able to do what you've just said? That they can see the technology, they can do this segmentation, they realize what the organization is trying to achieve. So I actually think in terms of sustainability and resilience in supply chain performance, we're going to rely on a new pool of capable talent who understand and can implement these changes.
And actually the capability, the understanding, the training is actually critically important for an organisation to understand what the risks are, what the opportunities and benefits are of AI. I mean, a classic one would be a planner, types into, an AI model. If I move from supplier X to Y, is it going to make the performance better? Well, what does better mean? Is it from a cost perspective? Is it from a sustainability perspective? What is it?
And that's
so you need to arm it in the right way.
And that's where strategic renewal comes in, because it clarifies the target performance you're looking for. The most powerful that I've seen where this works is in setting forward-looking productivity metrics. So you say, this is our performance at the moment. In 2 years' time, 3 years' time, this is where we need to be. Well, actually, what's the suite of technologies and data that's going to allow us to get to that point? So that sort of piece is really, really, really helpful.
Mohaela, your thoughts on data?
Building on this, I think an effective change management process is very important. All these, the people who are already in the organization, or the new talents, they need to come together and be part of the solution, not like pushing solutions to them, because then, of course, that we see a lot of resistance. We need to build that trust, and that trust comes with what I said before about showing how the decisions are made by these generative AI solutions. And with that, being transparent, I think that we can help people building that trust, right? The other challenge that maybe I think we should mention is the integration with all these potential external solutions, right? Our legacy systems, many of them, are not AI native. They don't support integration with external solutions. So it's important to look at that as well. Maybe drive the roadmap of our suppliers to build these AI native capabilities, so then it becomes easier for us to integrate, because we may have embedded AI solutions into our tools, but there might be others better somewhere else that we want to leverage.
Where I want to go next, if I can, is to look at some examples, really, because I think it would be remiss of me to have all this experience on the stage and not dig into some of the things that you've all seen, heard, used about how Gen AI can help within the sustainability context within procurement and supply chain. These examples don't have to be huge. They don't have to be absolutely organizational changing ideas. They can be small. Sometimes they're the best things. So I'll start with you, Mohaela, if I can. Any examples you'd like to share or surface?
Yeah, we had a lot of POCs. We start different things in our organization. And now we are scaling those where we have seen benefits. For example, the RFP creation. We have a lot of data from that perspective, and we can leverage that to build RFPs, right? And also maybe technical requirements. It's not just about the supply chain. We have other people in the organization that we can help by implementing this type of solutions where we leverage the historical data to help them creating new RFPs, technical requirements, and so on. Of course, this is coming with potential bias and so on. That's why it's important to supervise, on a regular basis, to supervise the outcome and then change when you see that there is bias in the decision, right? And then over time to become better. Also, question and answer. So there are a lot of, in the RFP process, there are a lot of questions and answers between the suppliers and category managers. This is another opportunity where we can use the historical data to automate this process. So it's the sky is the limit. Of course, we need to start with, I suggest to start with those parts of the process where you see most of the benefits, right? Maybe repetitive activities, right? And then have the people focus on activities which are more value added, like strategic activities. So then you automate the repetitive tasks and allow them to focus on something that brings more value to the business.
Bias is something we will come back to in a moment, but if we can stick with examples. Mark, I'll come to you next.
I think the biggest opportunity early on in this sort of emerging technology is in triage. And I'm seeing this across a few sectors, and I think in some way led by what we're seeing in medicine, where, scans with AI reviewing them, there's a better interpretation than humans. And it fits into that model that I was talking about earlier. It sort of moves you from the predictive to the prescriptive and towards the cognitive. I'm an exec director of a couple of firms, and one of them is a social purpose organisation that's trying to provide access to really vital services to some of the most vulnerable people in our community. So getting access to diagnostics of situations, both in efficiency, economic and effective terms, is crucial. And therefore a chatbot AI that does triage and diagnostics is hugely valuable and effective. So actually I'm starting to see some potential social impact benefits to our society if we're smart about using this stuff.
That's a great example. Ashley.
Yeah, certainly over the last couple of years I've worked with various organisations, automotive supply chain, consumer products and life sciences. And we've done some great work with delivering proof of concepts and pilots with external technology providers to probabilistically map the extended supply base to supply chain to the third and fourth tier. And there's been some fantastic results in terms of the accuracy that AI has been enabled, been allowed to demonstrate its ability to accurately show what that supply chain looks like with an acceptable level of error, right? And this is where segmentation comes in and the importance of understanding where it's critical to have 100% accuracy and where you can accept an element of deviation away from what the actual supply chain really looks like. Some of the benefits we've seen from that is improved delivery performance, which has enabled organisations to avoid penalties, contractual penalties for lack of delivery. So there's a real growing interest in this area. Automotives have invested heavily in AI to probabilistically map their supply chains from a sustainability lens. The German Supply Chain Act is driving some of this behaviour, for example. So there's some real good examples.
If I can just exactly building on that, if you're giving the capability of someone to question the data without having to really, the access is there to say, here's what is probably really going on. This is the problems you're encountering, but then here's a raft of options that you may consider. Well, that's huge in terms of enhancing the thinking. That's what AI can do. And I've done that, and I've looked at these lists and said, I would never have thought of that one and that one. So it's like, it's helping you spread your thinking and to do some more scenarios of what's going on. So combining sort of what we're both saying, that's a real power of effective use of this tech. Yeah.
And just bringing this to life, I mean, those organisations that are perhaps more advanced in use of AI in supply chains, they are still quite narrow in how they've adopted it.
Yeah.
And when I speak about narrowness, we're talking about categories like semiconductors, which have historically been a problem. So they understand the supply chain, but actually using the technology and the capability, they've not scaled it across because it's been quite difficult to trust the technology. And this is where segmentation approach comes in. Another use case would be sourcing of components through Russian entities, right? So most companies that don't understand their second, third, fourth tier, etc., they have limited ability to know where they're actually sourcing through Russian companies. It's a big issue in certain...
So transparency.
Exactly. So there's much more work to do, but I think there's some really, really strong positive case studies, but we're on that early doors stage, I would say.
Thank you very much for all those examples. Time is ticking away very rapidly, so I do want to get to audience questions. I still have plenty I'd like to talk about, but let's not hog the questions. Any questions from the room I can get to? It is nice when the first question is right at the front. It means I have less time to fill.
Hi there, thanks. Very interesting conversation. I just had a broader question. So we got Mario Draghi issued a competitiveness report around Europe and I guess closing the innovation gaps, adopting AI at a faster pace. Just a general question for you guys on, I guess, who are the forerunners in the adoption of AI in manufacturing technologies, etc. You're probably going to say China, but they're investing heavily. But just get your thoughts on where we lie in that spectrum and what you feel are the important things that we need to focus on to not just consolidate the manufacturing we have at the moment, but to actually evolve it and grow it.
Whoever wishes to pick that up.
I'm not going to talk about specific organisations. What I would refer to is if you look at, let's say, the Gartner top 25 supply chain organisations, you will see a lot of consumer product and life sciences types of organisations there. And they are typically the ones which I think are further afield with the use of technology and AI from my experience working with some of those. And some of that is lended because of the types of industry that they are. There's perhaps less risk with certain elements of supply chain management versus a heavily regulated industry.
I support that. The bit of wisdom I've heard recently from what a CEO, a long-standing CEO in the tech sector was, and it's the innovation gap thing, is if you don't disrupt yourself, someone else will. So have a look at who seems to be disrupting themselves quite a lot in terms of enhancing what they're offering as a supplier or service. I'm not necessarily in supply chain or manufacturing, but certainly seeing this in the tech sector of all sorts of apps and tools that we're using. All of a sudden, we're seeing all these AI enhancements on, which are making a huge difference. When I'm doing some research and I'm interviewing someone, as soon as I've pressed the button, it's digitized. I've got an AI summary, and in the moment. Just by the way, it's worth saying one of the issues that we do have in terms of, we're seeing this in recruitment and education, is there is a risk here of people using AI in recruitment, and we're seeing some organizations shedding people quickly because they've used AI to answer the questions online in their recruitment, and they're not up to it. I know it's a slightly separate issue, but you can see all the challenges within this. But it's this that mindset of scenario planning and saying, look at who is really doing it well, and you can spot them. You can spot them as they're adding it and doing it effectively. And they're doing it with a strategic purpose. They know why they're doing it. They know why it's going to help change the performance of everybody involved, the stakeholders in that chain as well. It's that clarity of thinking and adapting as things are the velocity, that's part of the issue, is the velocity, the speed of change, but it's that thinking, that's part of what you have to do. And these are these capabilities that I suppose I've been identifying over the past couple of years.
You also tend to find that where industries are going through rapid change in terms of their operating model. Take tobacco as an industry, for example, which are going through massive amounts of change with liquid tobacco and vaping. And they don't understand the world that they're in, and they need to be in. So using technology as an enabler to understand that new world and actually what that probabilistically will look like, we're starting to see much more of that. So industries that have massive disruptive change tend to embrace that technology focus a bit more, I would say.
One of the capabilities that I've seen at C-suite leadership team to do this is literally change management, and it is that thinking. And this, I think, is key to the future. I get the privilege of teaching hundreds and hundreds of students every year, and I do test them. I say, here's 15 global sectors, and envisage a decade's time. what's the digital transformation with all of these ideas? Where could it end up? And I can segment the students into their ability to envisage a very different future and a better future of using this. And it's a smaller component of that. And those are really important people. I tell them a story of my Sony Walkman when I was running marathons with 18 songs, and then Steve Jobs coming up with here's a million songs on an iPod, digital transformation, and say, well, what your this future, digital supply chain leaders of the future, what are you going to be doing to bring these opportunities and technologies together to realize that? So it's that being able to envisage a different future and looking for that talent and capability is crucial in organizations. So it's just a different aspect to what your question is.
Thank you very much. And Mark, if you do want to feel old, my daughter for Christmas asked for one of those disc things. She was referring to a CD. She's 10. Anyway, next question.
Thank you very much for the panel. It's been like really, really interesting. I have one question, and it's related to unconscious bias. So basically, when companies and when organizations are using this type of technology, they just come like with a specific algorithm and like a structure from an architectural and data point of view. But within your organizations, or are you seeing like in your sectors, like the implementation of a specific framework to contrast or to combat somehow that unconscious bias, or to enhance conscious bias on the decisions? Because sometimes I feel when we're talking about supply chains, we're talking probably to the global south, and probably unconscious bias is not something that comes on the core of the use of AI. So I think it's a very broad and topic, but yeah, it will be good to get your sense of it. Thank you.
Great question. That's a really good question. I have to think a lot about this, about educating this next generation of digital supply chain leaders. And there's the practical bit of which data sets you're using. So there's a governance piece, and we know there's quite a few cases where it's gone wrong for very large organizations. So choosing data sets. But I found it's just as important to look at values and to talk about ethics and moral clarity and make sure everybody who's engaged in that decision making is aware of applying some critical thinking as well to it. So that's what I'm saying is the risk with AI, we must find a way of protecting that ability to do critical thinking, which I think is maybe the heart of the sort of thing that you've got in your mind. I can see you nodding away, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's partly down to the organisation's responsibility to govern and manage and control the use of AI. Yeah. There needs to be, structure to how it's deployed. I don't think organisations should just be deploying AI willy-nilly, because you run the risk then of some of the things that you've been describing. So there has to be an element of control, certainly on the front end.
I don't know if there are CEOs and COs in the room. I've done that bit of what that governance looks like. This is these capabilities for strategic renewal. So if someone wants to talk to me about it, really happy. It's a piece of research. I'm trying to get to talk to more people and hoping to publish this at some point. But that values and ethics and being really aware of that, building that into your thinking.
The way we address it in our organization was by implementing, as part of the governance, responsible AI. So for each and every use case, we have people specialized in privacy and this type of things, which are questioning how we are using those solutions. And it's very important. Maybe as a technology person, it could be annoying because it's another thing that we need to take care of, and it's slowing down the development, but is key to ensure that we do the right thing. So this was our approach to ensure that we follow the regulation or we follow our own values as a company.
Can I just, because we've used the word governance a few times, what I was saying earlier, it's the quality of the organizational processes around decision making. And this is going to become it's crucial anyway, but even more, and we don't put enough emphasis on this. So that bit of governance, practical governance, and governance in strategic decision-making, that's becoming the crucial element here, and in strategic renewal. So that's where it sort of joins up, I think, what we've all been saying.
Indeed, that joins things up very nicely. Thank you so much for your questions. I'm afraid we are out of time. There was so much more I wanted to get through, but I haven't been able to, so my apologies for that. We're going to our networking break now, but for now, my thanks to Mohaela, to Mark, and to Ashley.